Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today for our conversation and briefing about the Inflation Reduction Act and funding opportunities for all of your districts. We're so happy to have you here, both our elected representatives and staff. Thank you all so much for joining. We will give it about 30 seconds and then we will get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you all for being here. So today we are holding a briefing on the Inflation Reduction Act to talk about the many funding opportunities that are available for your districts as New York State representatives. This is a really exciting opportunity to bring tangible improvements to your districts, whether it's environment and climate, health and safety. There's a lot of opportunity that we wanted to make sure that you all, as leaders in your districts, are aware of and able to bring to your constituents to improve their lives. So today we are here with Senator Schumer, the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislative Caucus, and We Act for Environmental Justice, who are hosting this webinar today. Thank you all very much for joining us. I'd like to pass it off to our We Act's Executive Director and co-founder, Peggy Shepard, for opening remarks.
Thank you, Sonal, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to all of our state elected representatives and their staff for joining us today, especially after what was a very busy state session. Thank you as well to Senator Schumer and Chair Legislators of the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Caucus for co-hosting this event on the IRA funding with us today. My name is Peggy Shepard. I'm the co-founder and executive director at We Act for Environmental Justice. We are a community-based environmental justice organization in Harlem that since 1988 has been fighting for the right for all communities to have healthy environments. We lead on environmental justice on the city, state, and federal levels. Now, today we're here to talk to you about the unprecedented opportunity that each one of you have to improve your districts, which all contain census tracts labeled as disadvantaged communities by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. And you know, for too long, these areas have been struggling with environmental and climate hazards. Now, in my decades of environmental justice advocacy, one barrier we've constantly run into is the lack of funding. And it's been one of the most common excuses for ignoring the needs of our communities. But thanks to Senator Schumer and groups like We Act, we have worked to enact the Inflation Reduction Act with environmental justice considerations. As a result, we now have billions of dollars that can be used to advance environmental and climate justice initiatives in communities across New York. We Act also leads a campaign called Justice Forward to raise awareness of the Biden administration's Justice 40 initiative, a 2021 executive order that directs at least 40% of the overall benefits from federal investments in climate and clean energy to disadvantaged communities. Now, this certainly applies to the billions available in the IRA. And of course, New York has its own Justice 40 promise with the state's leading climate law. Now, with the billions of federal dollars available and the Justice 40 mandates, funding should no longer be a barrier. Yet it still is, because in far too many communities, neither the elected officials nor the community-based organizations are aware of these funding opportunities. That's the first challenge. The second challenge is that navigating the federal grant application system can be a challenge for municipalities and nonprofits. It requires dedicated staff with specific skills. But rural areas, towns, and small cities, along with most regional and community-based organizations, simply do not have the capacity to successfully pursue these opportunities. So we want to make sure that you, as representatives of disadvantaged communities, have the tools you need. We encourage you to work together with agencies, grassroots organizations, and local municipalities to access funding for your community. Now, WEACT has also received a grant from the EPA to help grassroots organizations and local municipalities access these funds in EPA Region 2, and which is New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands. It's part of the EPA's Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers program, which will have these centers located across the country, serving the various 10 EPA regions. Now, our Region 2 Technical Assistance Center will conduct outreach across New York so that grassroots organizations and local municipalities are aware of the funding opportunities from the EPA. And then we will provide technical assistance so that they can successfully navigate the application process. We encourage you all to have municipalities and organizations in your district reach out to us. And that's why we're hosting this event today, to ensure that you have information about the rare opportunity that lies before us, and that each one of you can be a champion to ensure your district receives its fair share. You will hear from leaders and agencies today that are tasked with getting funding to communities. So with that, I am very happy to introduce Senator Schumer, our co-host for this event, who will talk in more details about the IRA and the New York landscape. So thank you. Welcome, Senator Schumer.
Hi, Peggy. Can you all hear me and see me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, first, before I get into my remarks, Patrick Donovan of my staff, we're going to do a picture. We have so many people participating. He'll tell people how to sort of get their little square in the picture so we can send this around, because part of this is getting the word out. So Patrick, are you on? Patrick Donovan? Maybe he's not. So why don't I give my remarks and then we'll call on Patrick.
Oh, I'm here, Chuck. I'm here.
Oh, go ahead, Patrick. Tell people how to do everything.
So everyone, we're just going to do a picture now. We just want to give everybody the opportunity. We're just going to take a second to do it, because we know that on these big Zooms, sometimes it takes a minute to pin yourself up next to the senator. So we'd love if everyone just wants to get on their own Zoom right now. If you want to go into that grid mode, if folks can let us know if the slide is providing any sort of obstacle. But we just want to, everyone able to take take a picture now, and you're just going to give everybody just a minute to allow themselves on their own side, just to get themselves in position to take the right screenshot that they want. And we'll just give everybody a second to do that. We know it sometimes takes a second, so we'll give everybody 30 or 45 seconds to do that.
Am I allowed to say hi, everybody? I see all my friends here now in the little squares. Hi, everybody. Hope I'm not messing up the picture by saying hello.
Oh, yeah.
So we can, that's good, Chuck. We can stay in our smile. Okay, I figure folks have had enough time, and we'll now pass it back over to the boss. Okay.
Great. Well, thank you. And I want to thank all of you, and particularly Peggy Shepard. It's rare you get introduced by a legend, but that she is a legend. She really has done more than anybody else to put environmental justice on the map, and now get the appropriate funding, because we work together with her and WEACT to get the IRA across the finish line. And I'm grateful every day for the hard work she has done, which I think are going to produce the kinds of results we have never seen in the environmental justice movement in the history of America, to be honest with you. So I really thank Peggy. She's been a great friend and compatriot, but most important, a leader on a key issue that was not an easy issue to get across to people, but she sure did. I also want to thank Sanal Jessel of WEACT, a great organization of which Peggy is involved. Of course, Mickey Salage of the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Caucus. And I want to thank our experts who you're going to hear from. Kristen Wood from the Department of Transportation, Robin Morris Collin from the EPA, and Dr. Henry McCoy from the Department of Energy, all of which have a lot of say in the money we're going to be talking about. And now I wanted to gather us here today with Peggy because I wanted to talk to you about this tremendous opportunity that the implementation of the IRA presents for New York State. I want to talk to you leader to leader because sort of in the humdrum day-to-day governing, I think it can be easy to miss the scale of the federal funding that is flowing into New York from the IRA. We're talking about generational, unprecedented levels of federal investment. These are once in a lifetime opportunities. And I know how important it is. I was once an assembly member. I served for 6 years in the assembly. And as a legislator, I know one of the important parts of your job in Albany is being assembly member, but the other is often more rewarding, and it's getting to serve as the mini mayor of your district. You're all legislators, but also in many ways, you're the mini mayors. You know your communities well. You're often their fiercest advocates. So that's why I wanted to make sure I talked to everybody directly. When I was negotiating the IRA and my team was drafting the bill, I made sure we prioritized above all environmental justice communities and investments in neighborhoods that have always been left behind. Depending on how you tabulate it, there is about 60 billion, that's not million, that's $60 billion for direct environmental justice investments. This is the largest investment in federal investment in environmental justice ever, by a magnitude of more than 10 times. So this is huge, and we don't want to let this opportunity go by because it's going to have such a positive effect on the folks who need help. The people who are going to follow me on Zoom are going to speak more about those investments. I also want to think it's important to recognize the tax credit side of the IRA, which has huge potential to deliver justice and investment to disadvantaged communities. It's something called direct pay. You may call it refundability. It's something Manchin didn't want, but I knew it was crucial, and we pushed it into the IRA. What the direct payment does is it allows tax-exempt entities, hospitals, local governments, neighborhood organizations, power cooperatives to take advantage of the generous tax credits in the IRA by you'd receive the value. So in other words, let's say you were going to, you would normally get a $100,000 tax break, but you don't pay any taxes. They give you a check for the $100,000, just like refundability works in, the EITC, the Earned Income Tax Credit, or something like that. So it's important to keep that in mind when you hear this, because it's not only direct grants, but the tax portions of this will lead to more grants, direct grants in terms of the funding. And guess what? The tax credits and direct pay has no cap, no cap. So there's basically, we can invest as much money as you can all come up with on how to spend it. Now we've gathered to help you initially get acquainted with this. We have a talented group of experts from the relevant parts of the federal government to talk through the opportunities through the Inflation Reduction Act. And I have a great team. Patrick Donovan is on the Zoom. Is Garrett Armwood on the Zoom? Yes?
I think Garrett is on.
Garrett Armwood, you know him. Say hello, you guys, so they can see you. Say some words so they can see you. Patrick?
I'm here. Sorry, I was
Garrett?
to mute myself. Hi.
Good. Okay. And we have other experts as well who will be there to help you with any help you need as you work through getting this money at the federal level. No project or idea is too small. You tell us what you want to get done, and we will work with you to see how we can pull the funds down from the IRA to get this. And so as we embark on this vast and exciting project, we have to tell people on the ground in the communities what is going on. There's no better people to do it than you. We all know too few people. They don't have the time. They're so busy working, trying to earn a living, trying to support their families, that have the time to know any of the details of the IRA and what's really available. So this causes two main problems. When community leaders don't know about the potential built into the IRA, there's less room for grassroots, bottom-up planning and action around solving the problems with federal dollars, because environmental justice has always been a grassroots from the bottom up type of activity program under Peggy's vision and leadership. Communities that need resources might not get them if we don't let the grassroots know about these things, and the communities that do get the resources might not have them deployed in the right way. So that's important. But second, if we want to build on the IRA and continue the work that's transforming our country and making it much fairer in dealing with the injustices that so-called environmental movements have done in the past, we continue the critical work of transforming it to get more. So we need to know how, make sure that people know under how clean energy transition is working and benefiting them, not in hard to understand projections or abstract ideas about what percentage of carbon is now out of the atmosphere, but in tangible benefits to the communities. Jobs, cleaner air, lower energy costs, less asthma, so many of the things that we care about. So that's another place where you all come in. I need your help. I want to use this Zoom as a kickstart to our efforts to spread the good word. Federal dollars are coming to New York. We hope you will put this all in your newsletters and all the ways you communicate with the people in your community so they understand this. And I'm sure they'll call you and you can use us as a resource to help explain it to them as well. So I'm asking everybody on this Zoom to help us by sending these resources, by talking about these resources in whatever newsletter list you have and by posting on social media. We'll give you some talking points and stuff like that, but we want to make sure we get it out. This helps us both spread the word to the community, but it also helps me make the case when I'm advocating to get funding with the administration and the federal agencies. The more grassroots involvement there is, the more grassroots knowledge there is, the more dollars we're going to get. I want to show here in New York, we're ready to tell the story of the IRA. I want to prove up front that we're going to make a big deal and spread the good news, and then make sure we get the maximum amount of dollars that we can in the communities that have been so neglected in the past. So it's really helpful in moving the needle and making sure. So my staff will giving you more details on that, but don't forget, we're going to check up on everybody. Make sure you send the word out because that will help us get the job done as quick as you can. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mickey Salage, the great chair of the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Caucus, who has been so helpful in getting people together and has been such a great leader in Nassau County and in Albany, as well as in New York State. Mickey.
Thank you, Senator. I look forward to you to ride your bike over to Elmont one day.
Yes, I have done that in the past. And I should let all of you know I'm not a spandex guy. I ride slowly. I look around. I talk to people. Mickey, no.
Thank you, Senator. And we appreciate you. And thank you for your leadership on a federal level. New York is so grateful to you. To the WEAC, to Peggy Shepard, to my colleagues in the Black, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, Asian Caucus, and also to my e-board, I thank you so much for helping us galvanize people and to get us on the Zoom. We're really heading towards a transformative future, a future where change is ushered and we have prosperity and justice for all. Our destination lies in the intersection of the Inflation Reduction Act and environmental justice communities. Those EJ communities is where innovation and compassion are going to collide to make a brighter future. And so when we talk about EJ communities, we know that they have faced historical systematic disadvantages such as discrimination, limited access to resources, and disinvestment. And these communities have been deprived of opportunity and economic growth and development. So we embark on a journey that's going to progress us to the future. And this is not measured by economics alone. It's a matter of safeguarding the well-being of every person and every community, particularly those who've been historically marginalized. And imagine us having vibrant communities that are blossoming with luscious gardens, free from pollutants, and not having the burdens that have been on our shoulders for so long. And I'm really grateful to the caucus members because we have been on the forefront of the EJ movement, whether it's our retreat up in the Adirondacks, where we had the great senator and other leaders, or passing climate and clean energy legislation. We are fighting for our communities. So when we talk about the resources in the Inflation Reduction Act, it's more than just a mere legislative vessel. It's really a lifeboat for our communities. It's offering us a lifeline of support. And it carries tools and resources that are going to cleanse our soil, purify our air, and restore balance to the ecosystem that sustain us. And imagine on this journey, we're sailing towards a fairer horizon where we can sail on renewable energy, where we can set goals towards sustainability, where the Inflation Reduction Act spurs the winds of change and propels us to a future where solar panels are glistening on our rooftops, where wind turbines dance on the horizon and green technology illuminates our path. With each and every renewable energy job we create, we are closing the economic wealth gap that we all discuss and we all want to close. So we are environmental stewards and we have this economic prosperity right at our fingertips, but it requires us to be on the ground and spreading this information. So with today, let's really just push all our leaders, all our community members to really talk about this opportunity that the senator has brought to New York and really make sure that we're taking advantage of it. You know, with the leadership of also the congressional delegation, we're really building a legacy in a future that we've been fighting for and getting that investment that we want. So to my colleagues and staff, let's seize this opportunity, let's embark on this journey, and let's forge a path towards economic stability, environmental justice, and a future where prosperity and compassion are intertwined. So I thank everyone. I thank the WEAC again, and bon voyage. Let's go on this journey.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mickey. And now we're going to hear from 4 people. First, we're going to hear from Sanal Jessel from WEAC, the leader of WEAC, which has been so instrumental in helping our legislation pass. And then we have 3 experts from the relevant agencies who will tell you more and more granularity about these programs, so you can begin to think of who and why and where and when they can be used in your communities. As I said, there's so much money here, and we've made it flexible so that people can apply for all different kinds of things. So make sure that you see them. So we're going to hear from, after we hear from Sanal, we're going to hear from Kristen Wood. She's in the Transportation Policy Analyst and Justice 40 Program Manager with US DOT. Then we're going to hear from Robin Morris. Morris Collin. She's the Senior Advisor to the Administrator for Environmental Justice in EPA. And then we're going to hear from Dr. Henry McCoy, who is the Director of the Office of State and Community Energy Programs with the US Department of Energy. So let's hear from those 4 people. I'm sure you're going to be very interested in what they have to say. We'll start off with Sanal, and then in order, go to Kirsten, Robin, and Dr. McCoy.
Thank you very much, Senator Schumer, and thank you, Chair Szilagyi, for your remarks as well. We're really excited to be here and having this important conversation with you all today. I am taking 10 seconds before passing it off to Kristen to re-emphasize in terms of doing more after this call. What can you do for your districts? How can you tap into the opportunities? WEACT is the TIC-TAC, as we call it. We are going to be a new center covering all of New York to help municipalities, to help organizations in your districts get access to federal funding. So please contact us and share this information with anyone that reaches out to you all asking for help. So thank you again, Senator Schumer. Thank you, Peggy, for co-hosting. Thank you to the chair, Szilagyi and the caucus. I will pass it off to Kristen.
Thank you. I was trying to work the mute button. Did you want me to load my slides, or do you have my slides loaded?
We're just taking 1 second and you should be all set.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for inviting the US DOT to join you today to discuss our soon to be released Neighborhood Access Equity Grant Program, and to share and to some tools the US DOT has developed. Am I still on? I'm getting a message that the Zoom has quit.
You are still there and we can hear you and we can see your screen, so you should be okay. I take that back. Looks like Kristen is having technical difficulties.
Should we move to Robin?
Yes, Robin, if you don't mind, can we switch the order so Kristen can address the Zoom? Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So my name is Robin Morris Collin, and I am delighted to have the privilege of serving in EPA at the moment of our greatest opportunity to advance environmental justice. I work for Administrator Michael Regan, and my portfolio is environmental justice at EPA. So I wanted to, first of all, thank our hosts, both Peggy Shepard, WEAC, and the Senator for their absolutely fearless leadership, because without you, we wouldn't be at a moment where we have both the right values and the right money to make this transformation happen. So I'm really honored to be here today to share what I know and what we're doing. Let me begin. I don't think I'm able to use my share screen function. So Astrid, if you wouldn't mind just pulling up the slides, and I'll let you do that.
Okay, and I just added you if you want to share yours.
Oh, okay. That's easy.
Let me know if it works now.
Okey doke. Let's see if I can make this work. Let's see, share screen. I don't know. Are you seeing my screen? Nope.
Not yet. If you want, I can share them if that
Yeah.
works. And then if there's anything missing, maybe you'll just add that in.
I'll call in audible and update as we go. Thank you.
Sounds good.
So as we were being introduced, what I wanted to emphasize for you today is that our communities, which have been disinvested, underinvested, polluted, all of the horrible things that happen when we leave communities outside the protection of the law, our communities don't lack for vision. Our communities don't lack for entrepreneurship. We have lots of all of that. And for the first time, we have access to capital, access to money. And what EPA has been working on are these three funds and networks that I want to describe to you, because these are the way we intend to make sure that this transformative money gets to the communities intended to benefit from it, those communities that need the money and the access to capital the most. So next slide. What I want to show you in the broadest of outline is a design idea. And then I'll show you how we are putting our design idea into operation mode. We thought that if you take all of this money and you pour it into the pre-existing model of distribution, you'll get exactly what went wrong. So we felt that it was important to design a new way of making sure that communities that have been left behind had a way to access capital. As I said before, it's not that our communities don't have the ideas, the visions, the entrepreneurialism. We just haven't had the money. So we redesigned a way to approach distributing the access to finances. And it begins with meeting communities at the ground level where they are. And by communities, the monies that we are handling are designed to flow through to, in some cases, individuals. In many of these cases, through partnerships with community-based organizations and local governments. They do not all have to go through the state. What we want to make available is an opportunity for everyone to walk into what we're calling a TICTAC, the Thriving Community Technical Assistance Centers, and find inside that door personal individual help for free that connects you to the basics that you need to be able to navigate this new world of opportunity. And so the first step is to set up TICTACs throughout the country. We've done that on a hub and spoke kind of system. We have hubs in all of the regions of this country, and those hubs are trusted partners. Those hubs are not the usual financial institutions. Again, think of what I said, you can't pour new wine into old bottles. We have put a new network of trusted partnerships based on their relationships to the communities that need help the most. And I'm really proud that in your region, we have begun with WIAC as one of our hubs, and the other hub for your region is the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico Metropolitan Campus. These hubs have partners in all of the region so that people can walk in and get help with setting up their ideas, their access to capital. These TICTACs are designed to deliver help to people where they are. If they need help navigating the system, we will help do that. If they need help finding the kinds of money that are available, we will help direct that. It's the full navigational support system. And while I'm on this slide, I wanted to add something new. Please put a flag on the week of August 7th, because that is when EPA will host a funding fair. And the funding fair is going to be operated through the IRA stakeholders group at EPA. The funding fair is designed to allow people navigational assistance to the entire federal funding landscape right now. I'll come back to that. Next slide for a moment. Let's go on. So, no, go back. We skipped a little too, yeah. So what you'll see is a trajectory that goes from this initial technical assistance centers through the planning project development. There is money for that. And again, I emphasize this help is intended to go to community-based organizations. It's intended to go to council people on councils that don't have grant writing capacity. It's intended to go to mayors and other small communities where you don't have grant writers and you don't know how to access all the money. Go to our TICTAC Center, get started, and help will be available doing the assessment and even to the next stages, the planning grants. That's when you need the money to do blueprints and engineers. We are planning for distribution of the money that is necessary to get from that initial assessment all the way through to implementation. Next slide, please. And while we are, go back one more, sorry. That's back. No, those are all forward. Let's go back. Back. There, hold up, there. Thank you. What we are also planning to do in the EPA Environmental Justice Grant System is to make sure that people are prepared at each step, assessment, planning, development, and all the way through to implementation. And so right now, what we are doing is designing for change grants. The anticipation is for those big projects that are really transformative of entire communities. We are going to be making large grants to organizations which will pass through the funds to implement at scale. This design for large-scale change grants, the RFI is out now, and we are taking public feedback. There's been an extension of time to deliver that. So now the next slide. I encourage everyone to think through what you might need and start with the Tic Tacs and let us work through that highway. We've been describing the previous slides as a kind of highway where we design an on-ramp for communities, for individuals, for everyone to get into the system so that they can have help navigating through to implementation. I wanted to show you a couple of other funds and funding mechanisms that EPA is involved with right now. Just to give you the full picture, we've got, of course, the EJ block grants. And again, those are designed for everyone to come into a front door, ground floor. There are no wrong doors. We will help navigate the rest of the system through the Tic Tacs. We've also got other kinds of sources of funding available for municipalities, and that's already in place to some extent through the climate pollution reduction grants. Next slide. Many of the states have already had to file a notice of intent, and 46 states have let us know that they plan to participate in these climate pollution reduction grants. These are, as you can see, huge grants to develop strong climate pollution reduction strategies. And this planning grant is non-competitive initially. And if the state did not participate, did not notice, provide notice of intent, then the money goes through to the next largest municipalities in a state. And so we have not left any, we are trying not to leave any communities behind, even if the state doesn't want to participate. These grants require strong community participation in developing pollution reduction strategies. Once that planning cycle is completed, the next stage will be to provide implementation. Again, thanks to the great thinking and negotiation skills in IRA, there's enough money to implement. Once you have done the planning, you don't have to go begging or find some other means to implement. It's there. Next slide, please. So after the climate pollution reduction grant planning allocations are done, you'll see that there is this intention to distribute the monies in the following way. Some of it's state, and there are the usual state formulas. Some of it's through to localities, territories, and tribes, so that there are opportunities in the planning grant applications for all participants to eventually be prepared for that next level grant of implementation. And in the interest of time, I'll just do one more slide. And if you could advance to this last slide. There's information coming out today. I will put into the chat the information about the Solar for All announcement that was made with Senator Sanders and my boss, Michael Regan, today. I just wanted to give you a quick idea of what is the thinking right now about greenhouse gas reduction fund uses. And I offer this simply as a nibble, a taste, an appetizer of the great things that the GGRF, as it's called, can do. This is where we will look for retrofitting of existing buildings. This is where we can find the kind of distributed power generation, including not just solar, but wind generation, geothermal, standalone storage, community-wide microgrids, district heating and cooling, solar installations as well. There are opportunities here for at-scale transformational power generation. And in addition, this is where we would look for further transportation, pollution, reduction, and also equity in terms of small business, fleet electrification, public and multi-use charging ports, electrification of diesel sets. There's more that can be funded, but I wanted to at least give you the idea that there is a commitment to all levels, all scales of transformation here. And I should add one other thing that I didn't massage into this slide already, and that's workforce development. We need to be developing in our communities the kind of skill sets and abilities that will make this promise of a green future actually implementable by our next generation as well. So with that, I will stop for a moment. Again, August 7th, it's our intention to have a funding fair. Look out for those opportunities. And also, please look to our local Tic Tacs as your best friend and first stop for information. Thanks so much. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Robin, for going over these important items through EPA. And as a reminder for everyone, we will share information out afterwards. And now I would like to hand it back to Kristen Wood, who should be able to now share her screen, I hope. And as a reminder, Kristen is here from DOT.
Do you mind giving it a try, sharing my slides one more time?
Yes, Ashford, we're seeing the Robin's slides right now.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let me stop and then try to reshare.
And thank you for your patience, everybody. I'm sorry about these technical difficulties. Great. All right, so as I was starting to say, I'm going to talk to you today about our DOT's soon to be released Neighborhood Access and Equity Grant Program, and to share some tools the US DOT has developed to assist prospective grantees, and in particular disadvantaged communities, in understanding our funding programs, how to apply for grants, and how to successfully manage a grant once it's awarded. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start by discussing our Neighborhood Access and Equity Grant Program. So the Inflation Reduction Act established the Neighborhood Access and Equity Grant Program, which complements the department's Reconnecting Communities pilot program, which was created and funded by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. Both programs fund projects to restore community connectivity by removing, retrofitting, or mitigating highways or other transportation facilities that are creating barriers to community cohesion. The Neighborhood Access Program places a focus on providing funds for projects that improve walkability, improve safety, and affordable transportation access through projects that are context sensitive, and projects that are designed to mitigate or remediate the negative impacts on the human or natural environment resulting from transportation facilities in disadvantaged or underserved communities. The program also provides funds for planning and capacity building activities in disadvantaged or underserved communities, as well as technical assistance for local units of government to facilitate efficient and effective contracting, design, and project delivery to build local capacity for delivering transportation projects. Next slide, please. The Inflation Reduction Act mandates that over the life of the program, 40% of neighborhood access funding be awarded to disadvantaged communities, and 50 million of the 3.2 billion be awarded for planning and capacity building activities in disadvantaged communities. As I mentioned, very soon, within the next week, DOT will be announcing a joint notice of funding opportunity for both the Neighborhood Access and Reconnecting Communities program. I'll note that 100% of Reconnecting's FY22 awards were made to disadvantaged communities. Next slide, please. So DOT understands that it can be difficult for communities to understand where to find funding opportunities, how to navigate the grant application process, and then what is required if they are successful in receiving funds. Over the last 2 years, US DOT has been working hard to develop tools and resources to help communities navigate this process. The first tool that I'm going to talk about, which is on the screen now, is DOT's Key Notices of Funding Opportunity dashboard. This dashboard is updated regularly with all of DOT's FY23 notices of funding opportunity, including their opening and closing dates, their anticipated release date, and links to their program web pages. Next slide, please. The second tool is the DOT Discretionary Grants Dashboard. This is a brand new resource where communities can sort by eligible activity, transportation project type, and whether the program offers special set-asides or match waivers. The dashboard not only includes DOT's funding programs, but it also includes federal grant programs outside of DOT, such as EPA and the Department of Energy. Next slide, please. So here you're seeing our DOT Navigator. This is a depository of a wide range of tools, resources, fact sheets, and links to more than 100 DOT-based technical assistance resources. Next slide, please. Some examples of the resources included in the Navigator are tip sheets on the discretionary grant process and how to navigate grants.gov. Many of these resources are offered in both English and Spanish. Next slide, or we'll pause on that slide. So another resource in the DOT, actually, next slide, please. Thank you. Another resource in the DOT Navigator is the Discretionary Grant Preparation Checklist. Each item on this checklist has a link to a technical assistance page that walks grantees through how to complete each step. So some examples include understanding NEPA, how to get your project on the TIP or STIP, and how to budget for your non-federal match. Next slide, please. The DOT Navigator also provides a link to CEQ's CGES tool for communities to identify whether they qualify for disadvantaged status, and USDOT's Equitable Transportation Community Explorer, which is the first of its kind transportation-specific tool that harnesses the latest census tract data across federally available data sources to provide users a centralized, easy-to-use platform that creates visibility into the drivers of transportation disadvantage. Next slide, please. Finally, we have 4 new technical assistance programs with NOFOs being published or closing this summer. Those include the Thriving Communities Program, Regional Infrastructure Accelerators, Rural and Tribal Assistant Pilot Program, and the Reconnecting Communities Institute. Next slide, please. So please feel free to reach out to any of the resources on this page with any additional questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for your information. It seems like there's a lot of questions in the chat for you, and I know you were maybe having to jump off a little sooner. If there's some questions to answer, that would be, you can do it in the chat, and then we can also make sure to get everyone your transportation specific questions answered as soon as possible. I'd now like to pass it off to Dr. McCoy, who is here with the Department of Energy, and he is the director of the Office of State and Community.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I know we're running toward the end of time, so I'll be quick, and it's going to be like drinking out of a fire hose, but that's kind of what this work is like anyway. And so, certainly you'll get a chance to get these slides and things of that nature. Thank you to Senator Schumer and Peggy Shepard and WEAC. I've had a chance to get to know WEAC quite a bit and do some work or travel with them to Austin and in Bronx. And so I understand this work and being so passionate. I just did last week a actual webinar with New York State Senator James Sanders' team on minority businesses. And so certainly here to support you. And overall, the Department of Energy's state community program that I oversee called SCEP is one of the newer offices within DOE. We have $16 billion that we are in possession of deployment. Of that 16 billion, $10 billion is focused on our overall. In addition to that, DOE writ large has about $100 billion with almost $40 billion from our. And so it's been really, really important work. And I think the caucus putting on something like this is so incredibly important because of this work. Next slide, please. So just to give a very highlight, Peggy mentioned about the Justice Forward, which is we've been again interacting. We did a webinar with WEAC a little while ago because I wanted the folks to get a better understanding of what we do. This focus on Justice 40 for disadvantaged communities is looking at how do we decrease the environmental burden and exposure to these communities, while at the same time driving parity in energy technology, provide more access to low-income capital for the communities, working with minority and disadvantaged businesses, make sure they take advantage of this opportunity. You heard jobs before. Jobs is so critical. DOT and EPA are critical partners of ours at DOE. And we enjoy working with them, and also energy resilience and democracy. So those things are going to really frame this work. Next slide, please. So we're going to go through this again fairly quickly. And Weatherization Assistance Program, which is actually a annual program, bipartisan infrastructure law program. I'm going to touch on that really quick because a lot of what you're going to see is how do we use these Inflation Reduction Act, like in the Home Energy Rebates Program and workforce training, to drive demand that creates opportunity, and that's at the foundation around both residential and commercial space. And so I want to touch on how these things come together to advance environmental justice. Next slide, please. So Weatherization Assistance Program, which is one of the anchor programs of my office, has been around since 1977. I just want to put some context because New York is such a, with your new climate legislation is such a leader in the United States. And just so you know, since 1977, there's been about 744,000 houses that have been under the Weatherization Assistance Program funded. The last 12, 13 years, almost 50,000 homes. Multifamily buildings that have been weatherized in New York, which is actually 10 times more than any other state in the United States. In 2023, New York State will receive almost $30 million from the annual allocation that we have here for the weatherization program. And from a bipartisan infrastructure law, you're gonna receive another $290 million. And so there's a lot of resources that are flowing into New York around weatherization of households. Next slide, please. So just so you know, again, this is a job creator. It creates 8,500 jobs by doing weatherization for 3,500 houses a year in New York. And so just want you to understand that at a very foundational level, going into the household or even going into buildings and multifamily households has a huge opportunity to create the demand side, which creates opportunities for jobs and investments and for small businesses. So that's going to be the context of this talk. Next slide, please. So a couple of things with the weatherization. This is through the bipartisan infrastructure law. I just want to make you available or make you aware. And really the action item I'm asking for each of you really is that to look at this, as you get the slides, look at them and let your constituents know. We have in something called E&I, Enhancement and Innovation, we have $25 million that's competitive. We're actually awarded $2 million to Interstate Renewable Energy Council in Albany over the last year, just recently in March. We also have some Sustainable Energy Resource Consumer Grants, which we have $70 million to distribute, and we actually gave about $540,000 in New York for some heat pump installation in early 2023, and we're now in negotiation for a second round of awards. And so New York will be selected for additional funding. And this is just to let you know that there is room for innovation that we're looking for. How do you go into low-income communities particularly and reduce their energy burden and increase the opportunity to put more capital in their pocket? And so here are a couple of opportunities where nonprofits and organizations who have ideas can come. Next slide, please. Just as a, again, these funding programs are coming available, so please reach out to us if you want to know more about it. Next slide, please. So the home energy rebates program, which is one that everyone's talking about, this is what makes up that $10 billion largely of our Inflation Reduction Act component, particularly $8.8 billion of it is. So New York is getting $318 million overall for home energy rebates from my office to do really upfitting of bringing energy retrofits as well as new appliances to low-income households. And so this is going to go through September of 2031. So the funding has some leeway ahead of it. So you have an opportunity to get engaged. Next slide, please. Of that, about $160 million is coming to this whole home approach, which is going to be the idea of electrifying whole homes, particularly in the low income area, even though upper income can benefit from this as well. But the idea is to reduce your energy bill and your energy costs. And so here's an opportunity for small businesses in this contracting work to get involved, as well as helping constituents that are low income in your areas. Next slide, please. The second part of that, that home rebate beyond the whole house is what we call the appliance rebate. So each low income household, if you're 80% of the area median income below, get a chance to get rebates up to $14,000 on appliances. If you're up to between 80% and 150% AMI, you get a chance to basically half of that get rebates up to $7,000. And so here again, the idea is to create demand by going into the household, doing these retrofits that then creates job opportunities overall, but also savings. Next slide, please. And just quickly, just let your constituents know, let contractors know and others, and talk to your state energy program, NYSERDA, about this work. Next slide, please. And so, so there's about $260 million in workforce development programs that we will release around residential and commercial and institutional over the next, really decade up to 2031 that we want you to be aware of. And one is around contractors. So how do you, get your workforce ready? How do you bring these upskill the folks, create good union paying jobs that help individuals who can get jobs and lift their families up? So actually, because of the time and pretty much the rest of the slide deck goes through these in deeper component, but we can take it down and they can share the slides with you. And again, reach out to the Department of Energy, particularly Office of State and Community Energy Programs, if you want to know more. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCoy, for your lightning speed presentation. We really appreciate that. And there's lots of questions in the chat. We'll try to get to a couple, as many as we can. I know folks have planned this until 4, but anything we don't get to during the event, we will make sure to have this and get you all answers afterwards if we don't get to all the questions. Now I'd like to pass it off to Patrick from Senator Schumer's office to talk a bit about how you all can get help with these different funding opportunities.
Yeah, just in the interest of time, we'll keep it really quick, but super excited that we had such a great turnout today. We really appreciate folks on and the elected officials themselves who got on. That was that's great. Chuck was really excited to see all of you. I have put my contact info in the chat. I will re-up it in a moment, but folks I'm sure know their regional directors out of our office. I'm working hard on the implementation piece on the IRA, bipartisan infrastructure law and chips and science. So feel free to ping me and I can loop in the relevant regional and any of our federal staff, but don't be shy, reach out. Your job is not to come up with how you get this stuff done through funding streams. It's to come up what you want to get done. And then it's our job and we act through the Tic-Tac program. It's our job to try to help you figure out, what funding streams, are going to allow you to accomplish those goals. So what we ask you come to us with is projects, things you want to get done. I just want to remind folks, as Chuck did at the beginning, we've heard a lot about grant programs, these fantastic, environmental justice focused grant programs. But I just want to remind everyone that another real lever for justice in this bill is the direct pay provisions of the IRA. So on that tax credit side, again, that is a local government, a hospital, et cetera, basically getting what is in effect a grant from the federal government to push forward clean energy goals. That's a really exciting part of the IRA. It's something that's probably maybe a little bit under discussed. And it's also something that it's not that it's uncompetitive. You need to be in the right position for it, but it's not. Some of these programs, obviously, they're going to have applications coming from across the country. Chuck is going to be fighting hard for every dollar for New York, but those direct pay provisions, are a little bit of a different calculus. So, encourage folks to take a look at that as well. Last, I do just want to emphasize again the point that the boss made about the importance of spreading the word here. You're going to be hearing from me. You're going to be hearing from Sanal as we follow up really directly with you guys. Just bugging you about that newsletter, that social media piece, but it really does help Chuck when he's, advocating and working hard for federal dollars. One of the things that we pride ourselves on and Chuck prides himself on is, look, we can really make a big deal out of this. We can help tell the story of the grant and the federal dollars come to New York. So this is part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to just demonstrate, hey, look, we're spreading the word on the ground here as these projects go in, which is important to the administration, and that's something that we're trying to be good partners on. So it's a way you can really help us out in our efforts is to share those resources. I think Sanal has put the Google Doc in the chat, and then we'll also just ping everyone directly on that. As well. That's it from me. Thanks so much. And please, again, number and email in the chat. Feel free to reach out with anything, nothing too big or too small.
Thank you so much, Patrick. And thank you again to Senator Schumer, who helped co-host the event. We will just, for folks that can stick around for a couple more minutes, we'll just try to get a couple of your questions answered as quickly as possible. And please see the Google Drive that Patrick just mentioned that has some social media, press release, and anything with information for you to share with your constituencies. So I see that there's a couple questions, I think. So Dr. McCoy, who's still here, thank you, Dr. McCoy. There's a question about just, is there applying for the DOE specifically for you, who is able to apply for the programs? Is it local governments, nonprofits? There's a questions about renters being able to access programs. So I think the answer is different for different grants, but if you can talk a little bit about that sort of distribution of who's able to apply, that will be helpful. And I will unmute you right now.
Okay, thanks, Sanal. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we have 28 different programs within my office alone. And now all of those programs are actually covered under Justice 40, which means that the goal is that, at least 40% of those benefits will go to historically disadvantaged communities. Some of programs are 100%, but it breaks. Most of the money that we have goes to the state of New York. So when I talked about the $318 million, that's going to go to the state of New York through the state energy office. The workforce development funds will be a combination of, going to the state energy office and maybe some competitive. We're still kind of working through some of that. The rebate programs will go to the state. So to answer your question, a lot of these resources will go directly to the state, and then the state energy office will manage them from that standpoint. So you should feel free to reach out to your state energy office in New York. We do have some funds. We have something called the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, which is $550 million. $550 million is spread across the state to get some funds to give to really small communities, and then a lot of communities will get funds directly through that. So if you look up the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, many of your districts, some city in your district or county in your district is going to get some money from us. And so you should think about, looking out, and you can always, if you reach out to us at DOE, we can share with you in New York, or if WEAC wants to know, we can always share with you a list of every single community in New York is going to get some direct funding from us. They don't have to do anything for it except basically say we want it, and we will send it to them. And so, so that money goes directly to local government, even though the state of New York can get a large portion that they can then redistribute to those communities that don't get it directly. And then finally, we have competitive grants. We have like some of those workforce development grants. Nonprofits can apply for it. We often, at this point, every program we have, when someone applies, they have to have a actual community benefit plan with it that tells us how they're going to actually support communities, and we're encouraging that the community-based organizations and those folks like the WEACs and things like that be at the forefront of this in terms of that plan and what it looks like, so that it's not kind of somebody else driving it. So you know, to answer your question, it is some of everybody. State gets a lot of money. Some of the local governments get some of the money, but we do have some programs where, you know, community colleges, four-year institutions, nonprofits, and others can get the money. We don't have any, I say, direct consumer grants though that go the grants that end up with consumers go through one of those other entities.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCoy. And Kristen, if you're still available to just quickly, I know you're answering a good amount of the questions in the chat, which is very helpful. But there's a couple of just questions about how to sort of stay connected with the opportunities coming up through DOT, and what's the best way to know when there's opportunity to apply for some of your upcoming programs. And there's also a question about timeline for both you, Dr. McCoy, and Kristen, of when some of this money will actually be available. Kristen, I'll hand it to you.
Sure. So I will drop in the chat. We have a listserv that you can sign up for, and every funding opportunity is blasted out through that dot.gov listserv. So I will send that along. And then in terms of when the neighborhood access program and reconnecting, so as I said, that NOFO is going to be released in the next week and will be open for a good period of time. So the awards would likely be made, you know, sometime next winter. So, you know, but look out for the NOFO, it's coming soon. And unfortunately for those folks asking questions, I'm not permitted to answer any questions on the eligibility requirements until the NOFO is made public.
Yeah, and as far as me, I mean, we have a lot of programs, as I mentioned. We have 28 programs, $16 billion. So that money's coming out at all different times. In terms of the money for the state, and I did put in the chat a link that you can actually click on, and there, we have a newsletter that we sent out, so it can kind of keep you up to date on what's coming out and when. We have a lot of money that's out on the street now. Not only have we, you know, distributed money to the states around their what we call their annual program, so money that they get from us on a regular basis, and some of the bipartisan infrastructure law. But we are probably sometime in the next several weeks going to be releasing the what we call an ALRD, which is the instructions around receiving funds for the states from the rebate program, things of that nature. We've already made available for the states. They have the ability to draw down 20% of that $318 million I've showed you. New York can draw down 20% of that funds to start doing work right now if they want around the administrative side of it, getting everything set up and ready. So those are already available. We also have on the street right now, we have a funding opportunity announcement around what we call nonprofit program, which is $50 million that nonprofits in New York could apply for. We do energy efficiency on buildings. We're already released, we've already had a round we call the Renew American Schools program, where schools can apply for grants to actually reduce their energy costs, particularly specifically schools in low-income areas, and school districts can do that. So that we already went through a cycle that we're going to be actually tomorrow announcing the winners of that, about $180 some million out, and then we have additional funding because that's $500 million. And so we already have a lot of money on the street, and so they come out and, you know, the states have told us, the local governments have told us that, you know, to pace it because they only have so many limitations. So, I mean, any given month, probably every month, we'll have something that hits the street. And finally, with the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant I mentioned, the $550 million that is spread out amongst local municipalities, including New York, that money's also already been made available. The states just have to apply for it, or not the states, the city just has to apply for it and say they're ready for it. So they're ongoing.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCoy. And thank you, Kristen, for your time. We won't hold you back any longer. I have two questions with a tic-tac that I can answer, but I will relieve you too, since you've already been here about 10 minutes longer than planned. So thank you both for participating with us. You shared a lot of information in the chat in terms of how to stay connected. WEACT is also here for everyone on this call to help if there's any info you don't have that you need. We will be helpful, and Patrick from Senator Schumer's office put his information to do the same. So thank you both for your time. We do very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Feel free to reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you. So lastly, there were two questions specifically about that's relevant for the Tic Tac that I'll quickly just answer as we are ending here. One is about Puerto Rico. So the Tic Tac is EPA Region 2, which does include Puerto Rico. And so there is a lot of federal funding that does cover Puerto Rico. And as the Technical Assistance Center, we are also responsible for covering that region. And then just generally in terms of grants available, there are many that do cover the area. So we're happy to be helpful in giving you information of which grants those are. And if there are organizations and municipalities that are looking for help, they can also go to the Technical Assistance Center we've been talking about. And in terms of where the Technical Assistance Centers are locating, they will be across the whole US. There's many of them. It's meant to cover the US. The one that WEACT is talking about today is for EPA Region 2. So it's specifically New York, New Jersey, US Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. And there is no sort of specific center. It's really a network of, we have some key partners across different parts of the EPA Region 2 to plug in with. And then WEACT is the sort of hub leader of the Technical Assistance Center. And we are physically based in Harlem, but are helping everyone across Region 2. So thank you all very much for coming today. We will share out the slides. We will share out a recording. We will share out, again, the social media toolkit from today, as well as there's a lot of information that was put in the chat. We will make sure to compile all those links and send that to you all, and answer any questions that we didn't specifically get to. We'll make sure to answer them and follow that back up. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Please do not hesitate to reach out to WEACT and Senator Schumer and his staff for any other questions that you have, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you all.